up, everybody? Happy Thursday, guys. Let me just get this angle set up right. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. What we got? April 24th, 2025 on a Thursday. Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome to the Cozy Corner Daily live stream. Guys, do me a favor as you come in. Hit that like button for me, guys. Do me a favor and hit that like button for me, please. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for me, please. If you're rocking out with what we're doing over here, which is coming to the ordinary people every single day in an ordinary way, chilling on the corner, talking about in real life news, politics, religion, conservatism, liberalism, all the isms. Like, just if you're trying to support and you're rocking out with us, hit the like button for me when you come in. Hit the subscribe button when you come in. It does a ton for the channel. I used to hate when YouTubers would say it, but it's true. It does that hack algorithm thing, so just hit that like button for me, hit the subscribe button for me if you're rocking out. I got a couple clips up for us to react to today and look at for our Thursday live stream. So I'm going to go through the menu, and as I always say, make sure you're grounded and you are regulated before you watch this. Why? Because news is triggering, and if you're not grounded or regulated, please do me a favor and watch it later. But make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. So with that being said, guys, welcome to Cozy Corner TV. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Kieran Smith, call me Q, and we are on the corner. We on the corner, y'all, and we got a couple clips today. On here yesterday, looking at some things going on with Money Mayweather. It's been going on in the news for few weeks now, actually. I want to say probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You can go back and find some news on it. I was kind of waiting because, as I told you guys, I don't like to jump directly into it first day. It's always nice to be first one up, when you got the news hot off the press, especially when you're doing, watching, commentary, reacting, to politics or news. But you don't want to put false information out there, and I'm pretty big on that. So, and if I do, I will always come back and say, hey guys, that was my bad, I messed up, which I have done in the past. If I even misspoke, misspelled anything, I'll always go back and say, hey, that was my fault about that, especially if I've become aware of it, if I'm not initially. So, yeah, so I wanted to give it some time. We got Dave Chapelle reacting to it a little bit. First up on the menu, Chapelle goes off on Mayweather's $420 million property scam fallout. Shout out to KO Gloves. And then we'll switch gears and we'll go over to Fox 26 Houston. Shannon Sharpe releases alleged text messages amidst lawsuit. So I got a chance to watch a little bit of it. This is the Isaiah Factor Uncensored. I like to follow Isaiah. I like his news and his commentary. And he is I think he's a news anchor over there in Houston for Fox. There are some text messages that Shannon Sharpe has made public, apparently. And here on the Isaiah Factor, he did read a couple of them. So you guys will get a chance to actually hear some of these text messages. And I mean, they were pretty explicit, hide your kids, hide your wife type of explicit. So, just in case, you guys got kids around you watching, some of the stuff that's in the text messages, you might not want the younger kids to see or hear. Then we're going to switch over to Fox 9, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Shout out to them. President Trump says Putin wants peace in Ukraine. One of the reporters challenged President Trump on this today because of some things that were going on via the Russia and Ukraine war as of very recent. And President Trump answers it, also kind of hinting towards he's giving it some time because he has his own deadline in mind, as well as mentioning it to us, who is the public. So he has his own deadline in mind. He's like, we're going to wait a long time. I don't think that, some people think he's being way too lenient. I don't think it's that. I just think there's going to come a point in time where, he's going to get a lot more strict about it than what he is now. But we know President Trump likes to be very strategic with how he moves. Sometimes he's really big on like the wow factor. So he might not say anything for a while, even longer than what most people expect him not to wait until. But when he does say something, I believe it'll be pretty strong, depending on where they're at, if they haven't made a deal by that time. So we know that President Trump is confident. He says that he believes Putin wants peace, he believes Zelensky wants peace, and he keeps hinting towards that regardless if we see missiles flying or, bullets going down range. He's like, no, they want peace, but there's a lot of bad blood there. It's going to take some time. So I believe he's being real strategic with this, and he's not letting a lot of information out on purpose. I believe he's doing that intentionally. And then we'll switch gears and go over to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to Big Bill. Attacks on Elon Musk and DOGE. So I believe Bill's going to talk a little bit about Elon Musk exiting DOGE, kind of like what my thumbnail says. If he did not fully exit, what he did was he took a step back, which Bill O'Reilly did also say in some of his earlier videos that he thinks at some point Elon Musk should take a step back. He's going to need to. He owns a lot of businesses, has a lot of money. He's tied up in a lot of things, and he really is just doing this as a favor to President Trump and America. But he needs to get back to business, and someone as high profile as Elon Musk really shouldn't be in a public eye as far as government the way he has been. So I also think this is a move of President Trump also protecting Elon. We know that he put DOGE in place at least for 1 year. So if we see Elon exiting kind of early, we have to ask ourselves, like, what's really going on there? But I think all of this is pretty strategic. Elon has a lot of technicians on staff with him, so he doesn't even have to be there all of the time like he was in the beginning, let's say, because he's kind of already put people on, told them what the vision is, kind of trained everybody up. They've had lots of interviews all over mainstream media talking about this thing. So I think there's a synergy there, and I think it's moving on cruise control pretty much. And Elon can take a step back now, and I think rightfully so he should. Okay, let me put that back there. I think rightfully so he should. One of the richest men in the world, if not the. A lot of people in the chat were saying Elon will forever be a patriot to me. Elon will forever be, golden to America. And I think that's because in all honesty, I think a lot of people are grateful, for some of the findings that DOGE has produced. I mean, Americans want to know where their money's going. Anybody would want to know that. So a lot of people are, saying God bless Elon and his family and we wish him well. But he's not saying he's completely taking a step back from DOGE. It looks like maybe he might only be involved in like a couple of scenarios, or maybe where there's imminent trouble, or President Trump feels like he needs Elon's expertise or another set of eyes. But he definitely is taking a step back. Then we're going to switch gears and jump over to the Daily Signal. I react to a lot of their news. Shout out to them. Victor Davis, Hansen, Schumer, Pelosi, and Buffett were right. Trade deficits matter. And indeed they do. We talked about that a couple times on the live streams here. But we're going to let Victor Davis Hansen walk us through why Schumer, Pelosi, and Buffett were right. Mind you, Nancy Pelosi and her husband, they are very known for being extremely, let's just call it lucky, when it comes to stock market and profiting. Right? They are extremely lucky. Know right when to pull out, know right when to jump in. Okay, and this is why a lot of people don't think a lot of people in Congress or the Senate should be able to, I don't want to say invest, but I guess trade a certain amount or at a certain scale. And I can understand why that would be a problem, because insider information is probably not hard for politicians, senators, congressmen and women to get insider information. So I can understand why some people would say that they don't think it's moral, whatever have you, the word they would use there, for senators and members of Congress to be able to do those things in the stock market. So Victor Davis Hansen is going to walk us through why these three people were right. Then we are going to jump over to the Simple Investor. Shout out to Todd over at the Simple Investor. I often tell you guys that Canada is my second most watched country on the channel to the United States. So I cover a good amount of Canadian news. They are having their election, I believe it's April 28th. I've been covering that a good amount. Hopefully I can get some live streaming on that the day it happens. Because either way, because I support Canada so much, it's just something that I would, like to cover. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll I'll buy a second house there or something. And then we're gonna jump over to the last clip of the live stream by Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff, YouTube content creator Cliff, who has 680 plus thousand subscribers and counting. And at the end of live streams, we usually react to a clip from Cliff or a YouTube content creator that focuses on Christian content or that is a Christian. And the title of today's clip is Mature Christians Thank God for This. And we're going to take a look at a message, I believe it was by Pastor Philip Anthony, that he clipped, and he's talking about, you know, some chastisement and discipline, if you will, that happens in the body of Christ. All right, guys, so with all of that being said, let's jump into the first clip. We got Dave Chapelle going off on Money Mayweather's $420 million property scam fallout. Let's watch.
He said, I'm a billionaire. Billionaires don't wear their money on their body. I took my chain and I said, oh, snap.
Because there's a lot of people out here that think just because people are flashing money means that they have money. It's so backwards.
This reacts to allegations of Floyd Mayweather being held hostage in Dubai. Tank says you got to pay people that money back. That's coming from, you know, Floyd Mayweather's protege, his former right-hand man, Gervonta Tank Davis, and here.
Dave Chapelle didn't mince words when commenting on Floyd Mayweather's recent financial troubles. He highlighted the irony of Mayweather's extravagant lifestyle amid reports of unresolved tax debts. The IRS has filed liens against Mayweather, totaling over $22 million for unpaid taxes from 2015, along with an additional $7.2 million from 2010. Chapelle's remarks underscored the glaring disconnect between Mayweather's public display of opulence and his financial responsibilities.
When selling off property, you have the ability to liquidate some of your assets. You have the ability to go and get a loan to pay off this tax liability. So we're not buying it. So we'll see if this petition does get approved. I mean, it's Floyd Mayweather. It probably will get approved. Seeing as how the event that's going to happen in about 60 days is going to generate more than enough money to pay off that tax liability. So it's great reassurance for the IRS. And it's not the first time that Floyd's been in trouble with the IRS. I mean, back in 2008, he had a $6.17 million lien on his property for taxes that he owed in 2007. Right, and this is just a recurring thing. We've had many other instances. You know, back in 2011, apparently he owed $3.4 million in taxes that were incurred in 2009.
Dave Chapelle, widely known for his sharp wit, once commented on Floyd Mayweather's financial choices, implying that Mayweather's judgment might not always be reliable, particularly when it comes to managing his money.
Do you think Mayweather should jump into the UFC?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to talk about money-wise or where he's at in his life. Yeah, I'm a boxing fan. I'm not really I don't know anything about UFC.
Do you think you should kind of stay in his lane, or do you think, you know, maybe to capitalize on the success of the McGregor fight?
I think Floyd made a clean getaway. I think he had a great record and the greatest run in the history of boxing. I don't know whatever makes him happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think he's doing his thing, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, man, let's get see. That's
you make me happy.
Yeah, my man, thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. All right?
Floyd Mayweather Jr. recently claimed to have acquired a $42 million portfolio consisting of 62 rental buildings in Manhattan. However, property records in New York City reveal no official change in ownership, casting doubt on his claims. Furthermore, his real estate company, Veda Properties, has not released any clear details regarding the transaction. This has fueled speculation that Mayweather may have only purchased a minority interest or secured options for potential future expansion.
My lifestyle, showing people how I live. Now, I know you guys see me on the record talking about real estate. Well, lately, I purchased 62 apartment buildings in New York City. And what I need you guys to do, slide over and check out the photos. It's not all 62 buildings, it's a few buildings, but guess what? All the buildings belong to me. I don't have no partners. And all the retail down low on my buildings all belong to me.
Mayweather's claim of buying 62 apartment buildings in Upper Manhattan for $42 million has been met with skepticism. According to Business Insider, public records fail to substantiate his statement. As a result, analysts suspect that he may have only obtained a partial stake in the properties, raising further doubts about the accuracy of his assertions.
Floyd Mayweather Jr. I mean, we all know him, the tremendous, talented boxer, but people don't realize how smart he is in business, especially real estate. He just did a blockbuster deal, forget about it. Upper Manhattan, 1,000 units, consisting of 60 buildings, affordable housing, $402 million purchase price. The seller, Black Spruce Management. This is going to be a monster, huge deal. Already a very big portion of it already closed. The remaining portion should be closed at the beginning of 2025. This is a guy who believes in long-term wealth, generational wealth. He's heavily involved in skyscrapers. Now he's getting very, very big in affordable housing in Upper Manhattan. Tremendous deal, $402 million. Once again, 1,000 units, 60 buildings. Forget about it, modern. That's what I'm talking about. That's smart. That's generational wealth, in my opinion. Not financial advice, not a financial planner, but very, very impressed. Floyd Mayweather Jr., not too shabby. V for victory.
Mayweather's financial issues extend beyond questionable real estate dealings. The IRS has filed liens against him amounting to more than $22 million in unpaid taxes from 2015, along with an additional $7.2 million from 2010. Despite these significant debts, Mayweather continues to flaunt his wealth, prompting public criticism and increased scrutiny.
Now this comes amid, rumors of Floyd Mayweather being stuck in Dubai because he owes people money. And, these are coming from trustworthy sources, Gervonta Davis, Floyd Mayweather, people who know about Floyd Mayweather's inner life. But back to TMZ. So they reported Floyd Mayweather was courtside for last night's pivotal Clippers versus Mavericks game. But before money got to the arena, he was handing it out, blessing 3 homeless men with $30K. Now, there are no pictures, there is no video of this happening, but there is an official TMZ article, and TMZ usually gets it right. TMZ also said, we're told Mayweather began talking to the guys and decided he wanted to help, so he busted out his backpack and blessed each guy with 10 racks.
Dave Chapelle humorously critiques Floyd Mayweather's financial situation, highlighting how Mayweather's extravagant lifestyle once captivated the public eye. Chapelle emphasizes that when individuals accumulate vast wealth, they inevitably attract vested interests. Mayweather's flashy displays of riches drew widespread attention, involving everyone in his personal affairs. Now, as he faces financial turmoil, the same public remains engaged, though for entirely different reasons. Chapelle's commentary captures the irony of public sentiment, shifting from admiration to scrutiny as Mayweather's fortunes decline.
I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Okay. When you say you heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and then 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through with, he's waving a gun on the street screaming, they're trying to kill me.
Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time of their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah. Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
No.
No.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress because, when you're a guy that generates money, people have a vested interest in controlling.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather has become a symbol of wealth, regularly showcasing his riches through flashy social media posts, luxury cars, and expensive possessions. However, the reality behind these displays is far less glamorous. Just because Floyd flaunts his money doesn't necessarily mean he's financially stable. In fact, his financial struggles have surfaced repeatedly over the years. At one point, he was reportedly stranded in Dubai due to unpaid debts, a scenario that suggests a man not living a dream, but rather evading the consequences of his own choices.
He owes a bunch of gambling debts. Floyd, okay? And he tried to
Tasha
slap fake
K.
news out here saying that he was in downtown LA giving out money, and then he was at the, what do you call it, the basketball game. This is Floyd in Dubai. Yeah, Because there's a lot of people out here that think just because people are flashing money means that they have money. It's so backwards. You just don't understand how backwards it is, okay? Because when you earn it, you, like I said, you don't really know you got it. But here's the thing, if Floyd had money, don't you think the money would have already been transferred there? If Floyd had money, don't you think the money would have already been transferred there?
Rapper 50 Cent has openly criticized Floyd Mayweather's questionable financial behavior, alleging that Floyd swindled him out of $2 million. This incident reportedly occurred while Floyd was incarcerated, and 50 Cent took it upon himself to promote Floyd's business ventures. Upon Floyd's release, however, he allegedly denied any knowledge of the deal, leaving 50 Cent feeling deceived. This account adds to the growing list of concerns surrounding Mayweather's financial conduct, forming a troubling pattern that continues to unfold in the public eye.
We brought them over. I brought them over while Floyd was, incarcerated. When he comes home, there's the Let's Get Floyd Back in Pocket campaign that goes on, where, it's $300,000 chains being bought and buying the new Lamborghini and all these new things. And I'm sitting there going, yo, when you gonna give me the money?
Because you're already investing.
Right, like when you give me your half of the money back. But I ain't trying to press him because he just got out of jail.
Right.
So it's like, let him cool his heels before you.
Was that in the millions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's sitting there big, and I'm like, yo, so when, but see, the fighters are an asset in themselves. They are that talent, regardless. Right. So I'm looking at him going, so there ain't no pressure there, but I'm saying, when is he gonna say he wants to, to give me the other half of it? Why did I ask you for it?
Right.
And then when
Are we talking over $2 million?
It's about that.
Oh, okay.
At that point, it was, invested in.
All right.
So look, he goes, when he finally does bring up the actual the situation, he acted like he didn't know anything. Like, I didn't tell you how to do that. I didn't tell you to do that.
Oh, man.
And I'm looking at him, and he looked in my face and he didn't tell me to do that.
Joe Rogan offered his take on Floyd Mayweather's fame, arguing that Mayweather didn't gain popularity because he was as formidable a boxer as Mike Tyson, but rather because audiences were eager to see him lose. His controversial persona and the public's animosity toward him fueled much of his notoriety, rather than any widespread admiration for his boxing talent. This sentiment adds another layer to the complex narrative surrounding Mayweather's wealth, fame, and the perception of his legacy.
And one of the reasons why people watch him fight is not because he's like Mike Tyson, just goes out and destroys people. They like watching him fight because they hate him. Because he talks so much, he's like, look at my $1 million watch, look at my jet, look at my house, look at this. He's like constantly showing you all these things that he has. Like he'll lay out watches in a hotel or bed, like this is $1 million worth of watches. This watch goes for $2 million. And they're like, this is my small watch that I take sometimes, but when I show up, I bring out the big boy and it brings out this watch covered in diamonds. It's like $5 million. And so you hate him.
Floyd Mayweather has frequently claimed that he earns $3 million per month, positioning himself as more financially successful than figures like Bill Gates. While such bold statements may impress some fans, they are often met with skepticism by industry experts familiar with the structure of boxing earnings. Known for his lavish lifestyle, Mayweather has carefully crafted a public image rooted in extreme wealth. However, behind the scenes, many of his financial choices have sparked concern.
Imagine working for someone whose whole persona is money, 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 and you don't get paid. Well, that's exactly what it is for employees of Floyd Mayweather. Employees of his Los Angeles gym accused Floyd Mayweather of bankruptcy after failing to pay them. I mean, he's still buying stuff. Portfolio valued at $10 billion, including 18 office buildings spanning. I mean, he can do all this, but he can't pay his employees' salaries. $10 billion portfolio, 18 office buildings spanning 10 million square feet. Like what? Another deal he finalized with a $20 million property in Manhattan? Financial troubles. Despite these high-profile purchases, allegations of unpaid wages at Mayweather's Los Angeles gym have sparked significant backlash. Employees claim that they haven't received paychecks, prompting a public protest outside the facility on Highland Avenue. One protester held a sign accusing Mayweather of modern-day slavery, while another noted that the money team has no money. Even if you work for a different company and if you ain't getting paid, you're scared to show up and say something because you know how businesses do. They silence you and they fire you. The employees alleged violations of California Labor Code 210, which mandates penalties for late wages. First-time violations can include fines between 100 to 200 and unpaid wages beyond the 30 days entitled work to a full day pay for every day delayed. That is crazy. Money team ain't got no money. Apparently it's not the first time too. They had one in Elk Grove and it closed down because the landlord sued for a non-payment of $30,000 in rent. Now the LA gym facing closure, employees are questioning whether Mayweather himself is aware of the financial troubles.
Oscar De La Hoya has openly addressed Floyd Mayweather's ongoing financial challenges, suggesting that Floyd continues to step into the ring simply because he still needs the money.
So again, at 160, okay, 100 pounds, 160 pounds, call out Canelo and do the rematch, and that's it.
You think he's talking this trash because he wants a rematch? You think he actually wants
Absolutely.
You think he wants a rematch?
Look, another reason why he's crawled out of his rock, he needs money.
You think he needs money?
Absolutely.
He's always flossy.
It's absolutely, he needs money. Once again, come on. Fighters like that always go broke.
He's always spending, so I guess.
Absolutely. Look, he's not fighting anymore, so that big money's not coming in. Look at what happened to Mike Tyson. He made what, $500 million? Right. You think you can spend $500 million overnight? Absolutely. I doubt he'll ever step into that ring. Floyd's a big freaking.
He called that out the easiest win of his career.
Yeah, because he was 21 years old. Of course. If I fought Ryan Garcia, who's 19 years old, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna beat him easy because of my experience.
So fight him in his prime, he goes down.
Oh, easy.
What's your message to Floyd?
Floyd, stay under your rock, dude.
You think Canelo's gonna out-earn him eventually?
Oh, by far. Canelo's 28 years old, and he's already made, what, $500,000? Easy.
Before embracing the Money Mayweather persona, Floyd was already grappling with serious financial issues. Reports indicated that he was facing potential jail time over unpaid taxes. In a desperate move to avoid incarceration, he borrowed $2 million to pay off his debt. These past incidents continue to shape the public's view of Floyd's financial habits. While he presents himself as a successful entrepreneur, many perceive him as someone who values short-term wins over long-term financial security.
50, aka Ferrari F50. So 50 is obviously going to take any chance that he can to troll Floyd Mayweather. And I don't know how accurate or true this is. 50 said it was true and then removed it off his Instagram like he sometimes does. He'll chime in on things and then remove it. But luckily for me, I know that he does that, so I screenshot everything that he posts. Just because, he'll remove it and it's hard to find it. I'm like, damn, it was up there. So just for like podcasts and just research purposes, I always screenshot them, have it on my phone. That way if it's removed, it's like, hey, he did post this. So what am I talking about? Let's go over this. 50 Cent has weighed in on a shocking claim in the ongoing spat between Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis, saying he believes a belief that has allowed him to get in some digs of his own.
Floyd Mayweather is widely known for showcasing his wealth, posting images of his luxury cars, designer watches, and other high-end possessions on social media. While this behavior may appear to celebrate success, it raises legitimate concerns about whether such a lifestyle is financially sustainable. Floyd has admitted that his business strategy often involves high-risk investments, banking on major returns. He claims he prefers ventures that others don't understand, viewing this unconventional approach as a gateway to innovation.
Floyd, you seem really comfortable talking about money. A lot of people in the UK are not. So what are your beliefs around money?
Just because I talk about money doesn't make me a bad person. I mean, I like to have the finer things in life. Money don't make me, I make money. I like to feed my family. We can't feed our family just saying I love you. Money is able to put us in a position so we can have the finer things in life. So we are able to travel over to the UK and experience to do different things. We're able to travel to Dubai and other countries and have fun and live life and experience different things. So when you're able to make a lot of money, you're able to do those certain things. And for those people that don't have any money, because life is all about having different experiences. And with me being able to make a lot of money, I'm able to bring my team as well as my family around the world so they can experience different things.
Something you said earlier, Floyd, it really fascinated me, and it gave me an insight that you really learned about money. Is you said in real estate, you got to know what to do on a small scale first.
Yes.
And then you went big. And is that because you don't want to take massive risk because you want to be smart with your money?
Well, you don't go out there and work extremely hard for so many years and then take every dime you got and just put it into something that you don't know about.
Well, a lot of people do, don't they? I mean,
and majority of the time you get bad results. 90% of the time you get bad results. Just like boxing.
Jeff Mayweather, Floyd's uncle and former trainer, has publicly expressed confusion over his nephew's financial decisions. Jeff has observed that Floyd's frequent purchases of buildings and diverse investments appear disorganized and lack a clear, consistent strategy.
No idea. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily see Floyd very much. So we don't really get a chance to talk very much. And so I don't really know what's going on. I know he's doing things that, to better his life, like, buying homes and buying, different things. And so, I don't know exactly what he's doing. So, I haven't seen him in quite some time. And I haven't heard about him talking about doing any more exit.
Man, that's his nephew. The way he's talking about Floyd, they sound real estranged. He's like, I haven't seen him in some time, like it's been a couple of years. He doesn't want to say the amount of years, but I can tell it's been a while.
Missions. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, I don't know.
Floyd has long taken pride in being his own boss, negotiating deals and managing his finances without relying on outside advisors. While this independent approach served him well in the boxing ring, it hasn't yielded the same success in the business world. Despite being aware of the risks, Floyd continues to spend lavishly, even as other boxers who followed similar paths have gone bankrupt. His reckless spending habits, coupled with questionable financial decisions, paint a concerning picture.
To a couple toys. They call this the $1 million run.
I know we're on television, Floyd, but I think it's necessary for me to say, damn.
Well, we are on ESPN. It's a sports conference. It's a sports network. This car costs $3.2 million. This Bugatti right here costs $1.6 million. You didn't see these?
I never seen these.
No.
Floyd, this is 7 cars, man. Silver, platinum, Miami, black LA, white Vegas.
Yeah, in New York, I got my drivers.
Since retiring from professional boxing, Floyd has continued to chase lucrative opportunities through exhibition matches. Although he no longer competes for titles, he remains active in the ring, lured by the massive paydays these events offer. The most anticipated and financially rewarding matchup would be a rematch with Conor McGregor, which would undoubtedly draw global attention and bring in substantial earnings. Floyd's relentless pursuit of money, even in retirement, reflects his ongoing need for both wealth and validation.
The value in seeing it a second time. The first one wasn't bad, but the whole thing was this notion of suspense and unpredictability and what would it be? Well, you got to see what it was. He got marched down and beaten up.
Yeah, it seems like Floyd might realize within himself that that's the last giant money fight he can make. It would have to be as close to a real fight as possible. It's a Conor who can still throw his hands, although to your point, the brand is damaged and, he needs to win badly in the UFC to revive that. But I wonder if Floyd at 45 is saying to himself, if I've got to fight one more time, a real fight, and that Logan fight was weird, and Floyd, I think, didn't expect to have to navigate it the way he did. I wonder if Floyd thinks this is it. But even that could be a trap fight for him, Luke, because of his age. You never know, okay? Yeah. But to your point, it's hard to get amped up for it unless one or both of them is sort of riding a certain level of momentum.
That's it for today's video.
Yeah, I agree with him. And right now, they both seem like, pretty moderate. Like like you said, with Conor McGregor, he would have to make a really big win, in UFC to come back from that. And Stephen A. Smith chimed in on this with Floyd Mayweather, his exhibition fights, as did a couple other people, and they told him that they thought he should stop doing it and that it was ruining the brand. So at first, I didn't really know where they were coming from with that. I'm like, listen, the man still has the fortitude, the strength, the body, he wants to do it. He's not going to be able to do something this physical forever. So I can understand him being 50 and being like, hey, I'm still in great shape and I feel like I can still go. But there is a lot of truth to what they're saying about his legendary status, 50-0. And I mean, you don't want to tarnish that by just getting in the ring and having these little fights that, yeah, you make some money, but it's like, like basically a legend or like the greatest boxer in history with the greatest record is getting knocked out. And it's, that's, nobody would support Muhammad Ali doing things like that. They'd be like, come on, champ, like you did your thing, sit down, like we like all hail the champ, like we respect you, but you don't got to do all of that. But with Floyd, he's still on that time. And it could be a money thing, it could not be, I don't know. It could just be for the love of the game. You have people that leave the game, Michael Jordan, and return the game a couple different times just because their love of the game. So it could just be his love of the sport, it could just be his passion. And some people are saying, nah, Q, I call cap, like he's money hungry. Well, I'm not saying that that's not a part of it. I'm just saying that's not the only factor, because at the end of the day, at 50 years old, Floyd knows he can get pretty hurt. He might not show it, but at 50 years old, you're not as crazy as you are at like 20 and 30. So there are some things that he's very aware of, even though he might be willing to push the limit. He's still aware. So we're gonna switch gears and go over to Fox 26 Houston with the Isaiah Factor Uncensored. Shannon Sharp releases alleged text messages amidst lawsuit. Okay, so we're gonna take a listen to some of the text messages Shannon Sharp puts out there publicly about this lawsuit where he's being accused of sexually assaulting a woman. I believe when the relationship started, she was 20. I don't think it, but here it says Shannon Sharp fires back with explicit alleged text messages after being accused of rape. So let's take a look.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Former athlete and media personality now, Shannon Sharp, is attempting to clear his name after facing a lawsuit for allegedly raping a woman on multiple occasions. His response revealing the name of the accuser and some very X-rated text messages he says he received from her. All right, let's take a look at this. According to the lawsuit, the anonymous woman says it began as a consensual relationship when she was 20 years old. She also accuses Sharp of a violent sexual assault and rape in October of last year and again in January of this year. The complaint seeks more than $50 million in damages. Sharp fired back, posting alleged texts from the woman in the lawsuit on social media. One of them reads, "I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it."
Okay, so this is the part where I was saying like it's pretty explicit. So I just wanted to pause it there so you guys know that this explicit part's coming up. So hide your kids, hide your wife type of explicit. So just some of the things that he's gonna say. So
You to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're effing me. Another, "I know you miss this big juicy ass, $25,000 for each cheek." And here's another alleged text, "You better crave it, cuz you're gonna be stuck with it for life after you put a big black baby in me." The rest are way too spicy. I don't know what's left. Joining us to talk about it, defense attorney and former Harris County prosecutor by O.G. Akingbola and Factor Digital producer Ajibola Mudaran to talk about this case. So, your thoughts about this? Just looking at it from the outside, your thoughts?
It's a big mess for Shannon Sharp. Tony Busby is on this case, right? And
he's a Houston-based attorney.
Houston-based attorney.
Been here on The Factor several times.
Yes, and we've seen him file several lawsuits against the likes of P. Diddy, against Jay-Z, which was recently dismissed. And now here we go again against Shannon Sharp. What sticks out to me, however, is the context of the allegations are different from what you would see on some of these other cases like Diddy, right? Or Cosby, who was putting in date rape drugs in several victims' drinks. In this case, she's saying this is a consensual relationship. We had a lot of consensual sex, and on these 2 or 3 separate occasions, it just so happens that it wasn't consensual. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a thing, and that these situations still happen within the context of consensual relationships, but I do think it's going to be a lot difficult to prove it, because it begs the question, if it happened one time in October of 2024, how did it then happen again in January of 2024? If it happened at your apartment, as she's alleging, who did you tell? Did you speak to the apartment landowners? Did you call 911? Did you go to the hospital? So there's a concern about provability. And then to add another layer of what might impugn her credibility are the supposed text messages that Shannon Sharp has. These text messages suggest that she was more of the one initiating these encounters.
The aggressor, well, not aggressor as in crime, but in the relationship.
Yes, initiating the sexual encounter, and that in some cases was even soliciting, saying sex in exchange for cash. $25,000 per cheek. If that is proven to be coming from her, it's really going to undermine the credibility of her allegations. So that being said, even if this is not a case that Tony Buzbee can prove by the preponderance of the evidence, I am concerned about the hit that it has on Shannon Sharp as a public figure. Because let's say this goes to trial, then there's going to be a lot of public scrutiny of Shannon Sharp's sex life at age 56 with that of a 19, 20-year-old. It's just not a good look for someone who's employed by Disney.
All right. Aji, what are they saying on social media? What's the response from people out there?
Well, I would say the kind of big elephant in the room is the fact that Tony Buzbee is on the case. So I think a lot of people still have the memory of the case he put out against Jay-Z and how that fell through. So I think a lot of people are waiting to kind of see if more information comes in. And some people just are writing off the whole case, saying that this is something we just saw a few months ago and nothing came of it. So I think a lot of people with the text messages and with the controversy around Buzbee, they are kind of taking Shannon's word for it and not really believing that he did this. But again, more information can come out and that might change.
And when we take a look at Busbee's career, and full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, but he's had a stellar career here in Texas. But there have been, issues with Jay-Z and the P. Diddy case. Not so much as P. Diddy, but the Jay-Z case. And now people are questioning this. But his reputation has been stellar here in the state of Texas and defending elected officials.
Right. Yes, I agree with that. And I think the last few cases with them not being in the state of Texas and also being very, very high profile, like celebrities that people, a lot of people love or look up to, I think whenever you can poke holes into something, people are willing to poke those holes in them themselves. So with his record over the last few months, at least outside of the state, I think people are willing to be like, we going to...
And Shannon Sharp has become a beloved figure of sorts as a result of his podcast and the audience that he's captured.
Yeah, he's sports unk. That's what they call him. He's the unk. So everybody looks up to him as like kind of like that adult male figure, older guy who, gives advice and talks about relationships, sports, and all types of stuff. So I don't think people really want to see him associated with this, but he has been open with his sexual life over the last few months. So I don't think people are that surprised, especially with those text messages.
Who was Jack Sparrow, the actor who played Jack Sparrow?
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. This case reminds me so much of the Johnny Depp case. I mean, assuming these allegations are not true, right? It still took a major hit on Johnny Depp's career. Even when he was a trial and he was vindicated, he lost that role. And so my concern for Shannon Sharp is even if these allegations are not proven to be true, he may take a significant hit on that beloved stature that he has with the American public.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on The Factors.
Yeah, I do agree with them on that. It probably will. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that it has to stick with him and it's never, going to be something that people don't think about. But I do think that it would be a stain. You know, I kind of agree with Isaiah there on that. He is very beloved. So the other guy that mentioned that, he is very beloved to certain people, especially a certain group of men, especially a certain group of African American men, and just men in general. You know, Shannon Sharp has a pretty big audience. I mean, that the video, the sit down he did with Cat Williams hit 89 million, and I believe that was his biggest video yet on his podcast. So it does suck if this comes out to not be true. I mean, if the text messages and things like that are true, I would agree with the other gentleman. She is gonna lose some credibility there, because you see things like that and you see charges there and money involved and you kind of coercing somebody. So, and then yeah, it still is gonna leave the question of, you know, okay, it happened so many times, so how did it happen in August and then not happen in January? Like, what was going on then? And there could be a lot of factors at play. No, I'm not jumping to conclusions saying that the young lady is lying, but you know, I'm just saying, like, they will take those things into consideration. Like, what's a scenario that if this was such a consensual relationship, what is a scenario that would be at play where the sex at some point would it be consensual? Well, they could have been on a break, right? There could have been a really bad argument, and she didn't want that at that time. You know, it could have been a lot of different reasons. So it's still, but the text messages, and he didn't even read all of them because he said the other ones are too spicy, which those are already explicit, right? So the text messages, depending on how many they are, how much detail there is, and how provocative they are, it's like she can lose a lot of credibility there. So I can see where he says the younger gentleman now to the further left, he says on social media that it is kind of already losing credibility because we see Bugsby being involved. We see how the case against Jay-Z pretty much got thrown out. So a lot of people are writing this off. Some writing it off because their admiration for Shannon Sharp. Some writing it off because the credibility of Bugsby, but whatever have you. We'll keep a lookout on it and just see how that plays out. You know, I am wondering what kind of hit his podcast is going to take because of it. And I hope not too bad, you know, especially if this is something that isn't true. That just would really suck because he's doing a great job over there on this podcast. So we're going to switch gears, guys, and jump over to Fox 9, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Shout out to them. President Trump says Putin wants peace in Ukraine. So let's have a listen.
So, Mr. President, on Russia, do you still believe that Putin is serious about peace given the events overnight in Ukraine? And if that bombing doesn't end, are you considering new sanctions on Russia?
So we are thinking that very strongly that they both want peace, but they have to get to the table. We're waiting a long time. They have to get them to the table, and I think they're going to get peace. We want to save 5,000 young people. I used to say 2,500, and I say 5,000. We have, Mr. Prime Minister, we have about 5,000 young people a week that are dying in that ridiculous war. And, you know, I started out because I didn't like all the money that we were paying, and then I realized how many people were dying. And that's by far the more important element right now. We're saying we can save thousands of people. I don't like that it takes long at all, but I think they both want to make peace. I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood, a lot of disgust. But I think I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying.
Mr. President, do you have a deadline for when?
I have my own deadline. And we want it to be fast. And the Prime Minister is helping us. He wants it to be fast too. And I think everybody in this, you know, at this time in NATO, they want to see this thing happen. So we have a deadline, and after that, we're going to have a very much different attitude. But I think it has a very good chance of getting done.
Like in Norway, you prove that they're an important ally to the U.S. What in Norway do?
Just keep doing what they're doing. We have a very good relationship with Norway. Great leader, great people. I know many of the people in Norway, and it's truly it's an incredible country. So all they have to do is keep doing what they're doing. I think is probably the best answer I can give you.
As you pointed out, the former Secretary General of NATO is here, Mr. Stoltenberg. How important is the NATO defense alliance, Mr. President? Is it sacrosanct from your perspective?
Well, it's a very interesting question. It's certainly very important for Europe, and I think without us it wouldn't be as nearly as powerful. And as the former Secretary General, who did a great job, can tell you, I played when I was there a very big role in making sure that NATO is funded by the 28, at that time they had 28 countries, including us, because many of the countries weren't paid, and they ended up being paid, you would say, and the Secretary General was very nice about it, as far as I was concerned. Other presidents went in, they made a speech and they left, and that kept going on, and in the meantime, they had no money. And the United States was paying far more than its fair share. You could say that they were paying, I actually said sometimes it looked like 100%, and it was unfair. And the two of us worked very well together, and we took care of the situation.
There are some
Statistics are showing that the U.S. actually has a trade surplus with Norway. Are you going to be looking into that and see which of the countries are actually in a trade surplus?
Yeah, well, with the United States, almost everybody has a surplus. It's really an amazing phenomenon. No, there's a surplus of a couple of $1 billion, I think you have with it. I congratulate you, that's very good. We're gonna get a little bit of that for ourselves maybe, but they do have a surplus. Norway has a surplus.
In the current situation, analysts have pointed out that the U.S. actually need allies. Do you consider Norway as a possible ally in the situation?
I think Norway's always been an ally. They've been somebody we've been very close to, very friendly with. Maybe more so now with me than other people, but I think Norway's always been a great ally, yeah. It's always been a friend.
That's a very strange question, actually, because the US is our lead ally, and we build on a relationship which we will talk about now, Mr. President. But
yeah.
It's of high relevance, and I'm very happy that we have secure state and secure defense. So this is a very strong tie.
But it was a question about ally in the tariff situation specifically.
Tariff situation?
Yes.
Well, that's, we're talking about a little bit different subject then. We're talking about a different type of ally. No, in this case, he would be very much inclined to be an ally of Norway because he wants to make the best business deal possible. And Norway and the Norwegians are great business people. They're great traders. They're great, very smart nation, very well-managed nation. Has been for a long time, and in particular now with this leadership. But we'll be talking about trade and other things, and I think we're going to come to a conclusion very quickly.
I like the way he answered it though, because the lady clarifies the reporter, and she says, "Well, I was talking about an ally in the terms of tariffs," and you kind of see the Prime Minister's reaction there. President Trump's like, "Well, that's kind of like a different conversation," but he says in that case he is a ally of Norway, right? Because he's the Prime Minister. He's like, and he's trying to make the best deal for Norway, which is to be expected, just like President Trump is trying to make the best deal for the United States. He's making people upset, but there's reason. You hear the reporter say it, and he answers back. He says there seems to be a surplus with everyone when it comes to the United States. So it's not just Norway.
Mr. Prime Minister, I was wondering whether you think the Donald Trump foreign secretary deserves to be honored for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, I salute President Trump for having been taking very important initiatives to get this conflict towards an end which both parties deserve. We need to have a ceasefire, save lives, move towards something which is more secure for Europe, for the people concerned. And on that we work together. And I look forward to go into some details because we are at the critical moment. On that price, that is a committee taking care of that, which is completely working on its own terms, and I cannot comment on that.
Mr. President, question on China. Thank you very much for that question. I like that question. Yeah, please.
A question on China. Can you clarify with whom the U.S. is speaking with China? They're saying it's fake news that trade talks are happening.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China. And so I think you have, Jeff, as usual, I think you have your reporting wrong. Thank you very much. We'll see you inside.
He said, Jeff, I think you have your reporting wrong. Yeah, so the reporter is asking President Trump about trade deals with China, and he's saying, is it true that they're actually happening? Because a lot of people are saying it's fake news, and President Trump responds and says, well, they had meetings today, and I don't know if you guys heard, the reporter says, who's they? And President Trump said, it's not important who they is. He's like, we might release it, we might not. But he said it is something that they are working towards, and they're having meetings. And I think he handles himself a lot better with the press than he did his first term. I used to watch a lot of his press conferences during his first term, and I mean, man, he was a cannon. But he really was. He's more polished now because he's had a first term and he has better people surrounding him. I believe that. But yeah, he was a firecracker his first term with the press. I mean, he would just unleash on them every time they tried to twist something. It was pretty hilarious sometimes. All right, guys, so we're gonna switch gears and jump over to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to Bill O'Reilly. Attacks on Elon Musk and DOGE. So Bill O'Reilly's going to talk about some attacks. He's talked about this in the past, but some recent attacks on Elon Musk and DOGE, and Elon Musk taking a small step back from DOGE. Let's take a listen.
Points memo, Elon Musk. Interesting story. So I met him for the first time on St. Patrick's Day. And we had an interesting conversation in the Oval Office. And I'm not name dropping, I've already reported this. And he asked me some questions about presentation for the Department of Government Efficiency, and I gave him my opinion. And we had a very good, nice conversation. Now he's going to recede from government for a while, okay? So I knew that was going to happen, not because of the conversation I had with him. He didn't tell me that. But here's what I said on April 2nd on News Nation. Go.
What do you think the reality is about why Musk may be getting pushed, or whether he's walking away?
Well, as I said very early on, Musk is a short timer. It's just too hot. You just can't have a guy that hot. And he did a good job exposing the government waste, bringing it back onto page one. But now the technicians should take over. You don't need Elon to go out and sell it, it's sold. Okay, so yesterday, Mr. Musk put out this statement, quote,
and I thought that was a good point that Bill made. He said, Elon doesn't need to go out and sell, it's been sold. So now the technicians can take over. So I don't think that he's going to just completely disappear from DOGE. But yeah, I definitely see where there's room now for him to step back and deal with some more personal endeavors, just simply because he had a lot of business things going on way before he was dealing with government. So yeah, he has technicians, a team in place, so they can pretty much take over. They know the cadence, they know the way they should be marching, and there's no need to sell DOGE because it's already been sold.
Quote, starting probably in the next month, my time allocation in DOGE will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for anywhere, probably the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we start does not come back, which it will if it has a chance. So I think I'll continue to spend a day or two per week on government matters for as long as the president would like me to do so, and as long as it's useful. But starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla. And he has to do that because Tesla is in trouble. It lost $19 billion in revenue since Elon Musk joined the Trump administration.
So I'm going to read this for you guys because YouTube probably has it flipped on the screen. It says, Tesla in trouble. Since Elon Musk got involved with DOGE, Tesla has lost over $19 billion in revenue. Tesla profits dropped 71% for the first quarter of 2025. This is accompanied by a 13% decline in global deliveries, the lowest in 3 years, and a 36% plunge in stock price, the steepest since 2022.
Administration, 19 billion is a big number. All right, profits dropped 71% in the first quarter of 2025, and there's a 13% decline in global deliveries, and that's before the tariffs even kick in. So Musk, who is the wealthiest man in the world, he doesn't want to see his company dissolve. And then you had the political stuff. So he's paid a huge price, as everybody knows, as the far left has attacked him. I can't quite figure out why they hate him so much.
You know
but
why,
they
Bill.
do. All right, so on the DOGE front.
You know why they hate him so much, Bill? Because he went after their system. He's dipping in their money. You know why.
At least $160 billion in waste has been exposed. And that's a fact.
All right, so, and it is a fact because Elon Musk and his team have been very transparent, even in public spaces, and have said, if you go on the DOGE website, we have this listed line for line about what we found, what we've allocated, what we've taken away, what we've cut, and he's very transparent about it. So it says DOGE success. DOGE has saved taxpayers $160 billion through a combination of selling unneeded assets, canceling contracts, leases, and grants, intercepting fraudulent payments, reducing interest payments, making programmatic changes, reforming regulations, and reducing the workforce. These savings amount to $994 per taxpayer. DOGE has eliminated 85 contracts related to DEI at more than a dozen federal agencies worth roughly $1 billion.
Okay, that's not debatable. And government has canceled leases, grants, fraudulent payments, and they made a lot of changes. This comes out to about $1,000 for every American taxpayer that Musk and DOGE has saved. That's pretty good, right? 85 contracts related to DEI have been canceled. Now that's why the far left hates it, because they love DEI.
Yeah,
And I'm going to do that tomorrow, a big DEI thing. So write that down.
DEI tomorrow.
And in addition to the DEI stuff, the far left doesn't want any government cuts. Listen to Senator Warren. Go.
When unelected billionaires start ransacking our...
This is Senator Elizabeth Warren. This is the lady who during President Trump's joint speech was on her cell phone. Well, especially when he was listing all the accomplishments that the administration had accomplished when it came to MS-13 gang members and getting justice for some of the victims and their families. 13-year-old boy with brain cancer who President Trump made an honorary Secret Service agent. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren was on her cell phone, extremely unbothered and uninterested in what the president was saying.
When unelected billionaires start ransacking our government offices, this is not business as usual. Nope, nothing is normal. We are living a nightmare created by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and we need to wake up.
By waking up, she's sending a signal to attack Musk, which people have done, by destroying Teslas and other things like that. I hold Warren and Bernie Sanders and AOC accountable for this hatred. I do. They incite it. There's no doubt about it. And here's an interesting question.
Wow.
So we have a $37 trillion debt, right? And these far left loons, they don't want to cut any of it. I shouldn't say that. They cut the Defense Department. Okay, they do that. But they don't want to do any of the wasteful spending. They want to send money to the NMR and all of that stuff. But what was President Biden's plan to bring down the $37 trillion debt? What?
He didn't have one.
There was no plan.
Yeah, he didn't.
There wasn't even an effort to come up with a plan. Biden was the biggest spending president in American history. He didn't want to spend it. They don't care. Because they buy votes. And then everything that DOGE wants to cut, you're firing this person, this third grader won't get dessert. Or this old woman won't get this, or won't get, it's easy. It's easy. All right, when you cut, some people are going to be inconvenienced. All right, so summing up, DOGE is a success. Look, Elon Musk, you like him, you don't like him, doesn't matter to me. I think that what he has accomplished is definitely worth it.
Yes.
And that's enough. Thank you for...
I would say it's been pretty impressive. And Bill O'Reilly said it. He said when he was reading the success of DOGE and that DOGE has saved the government $160 billion or $1 trillion. What did he say? I don't even want to go back and look for it. Where you at, Bill? DOGE has saved taxpayers $160 billion through a combination of, and then they list the things. He says that this is not debatable. You know, he's honest about that. He said this is not up for discussion. This is a fact. Whether you go on the website, whether you look and you see in government records, they've changed and rectified some things. So he's saying this is not debatable. You can't argue back and forth about this. This is something that already happened. Elon Musk and DOGE did save taxpayers $160 billion through a combination of, and they list all the things: unneeded assets, canceling contracts, programmatic changes, reforming regulations, reducing the workforce. So Bill O'Reilly is saying this stuff is not debatable. These are things that he has in fact actually done. So I do think that it's been impressive, and simply just I think one thing that's been impressive to me is the fact that Elon Musk just didn't have to do it. Like, he didn't have to come and work for the United States government and help President Trump with this DOGE thing, you know, cutting waste, fraud, and all of this stuff, and get harassed, and his dealerships are like set on fire and like blown up, and people are threatening his family, and it's like, it's not a funny thing. It's just amazing to me how like people can't see this, and this is how I know people are so self-absorbed. They can't see, like, the man didn't need to do it. He didn't need to come help. He didn't, like, he said it himself. He's like, I mean, America is a sinking ship, and I love it. He said this on the White House lawn because I covered this, and of course, specifically because of what Elon Musk and Sean Hannity were talking about. Of course, YouTube gave me a copyright strike. Well, it wasn't a strike, but like a copyright warning, because there was something in there that Elon and Sean Hannity were talking about. And I was like, I'm not going to take it down. I don't care. You could just leave it on there because it's not affecting the channel. But sometimes they do that depending on what the conversation is. Mainstream media, they put things up, they take things down. So if I have something that they don't like that I have it up, I'm going to leave it there. He was so transparent in that interview with Sean Hannity. That is where he said that America is a sinking ship. And he's like, this might be a message to people who are well off or who have money, but we are all in that ship. He's like, and if the ship goes down, we all go down. He's like, your company in America is not going to survive. Like, you are not going to survive. This is not like the rich people are going to make it and the middle class won't. He's like, we're all going to sink because we're all in the ship. And I thought that it was brilliant that he said that, because so many people are like, oh, all Elon Musk cares about is the rich, and he's trying to take from the poor, and him and President Trump are stealing. And he's like, dude, the things that we're doing with DOGE are reasons why people don't have to worry about not getting their Social Security and things like that. But I said it yesterday, and I've said it a couple times on the live. When people are so focused on Democrat, I hate Trump, Trump bad. It's like they're not paying attention to the moves that their president's making, that the administration is making. So they're blind to it, and they're going off of a whole bunch of emotion and a little bit of understanding, and they're just like, I can't stand Donald Trump, he's ruining my life. And they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand what they're talking about. So we're gonna switch gears and go over to the Daily Signal. Shout out to Victor Davis Hanson. Schumer, meaning Mr. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Warren Buffett were right. Trade deficits matter. Let's take a listen. Oh, you know what? I know.
We've been warned that trade deficit.
I'm gonna start this actually from. Okay, so I'll let this play and then I'll do everything.
Of the last consecutive 50 years, really, we've been warned that trade deficits of the last consecutive 50 years really don't matter because we grew so much in our GDP and our per capita income. There were other factors that allowed the trade deficits not to matter as much because we were not running huge budget deficits nor national debt. Look at the budget. Just to go back to that year, 25 years ago, we were running, I can't believe it, a $236 billion surplus.
Dude, when he said this, I was like, wow, 25 years ago. I'm like, we were running, and so in the year 2000, I'm like, oh my goodness, a $236 billion surplus. Even Victor Davis Hansen's like, I can't believe it.
$36 billion surplus. This was the grand Gingrich Speaker of the House, Bill Clinton budget that was still in effect. We were adding to our national wealth by 2.4% plus of GDP. Now we're running a $1.8 to $2 trillion annual deficit.
Oh my goodness, that's just nasty. We went from $236 billion surplus to a $1.8 to $2 trillion annual deficit. That's just, when he said it, I was depressed. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, oh my goodness, those are ugly numbers. Okay, let's go right here.
Davis Hansen for the Daily Signal. I want to talk about red ink. Red ink is manifested in trade deficits, budget deficits, and national debt. They're all connected. But here's my point. We've been warned that trade deficits of the last 56 years, consecutive 50 years, really don't matter because we grew so much in our GDP and our per capita income. But there were other factors that allowed the trade deficits not to matter as much because we were not running huge budget deficits, nor national debt had not climbed to the present levels, as well as we weren't the beneficiaries of a tech revolution in Silicon Valley, and we were not yet beneficiaries of being a net oil producer rather than importer. But let me get to my point. In 2000, I'm just taking an arbitrary year, a quarter century ago, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and other Democrats made an impassioned case that it was unsustainable to have a $100 billion deficit with China in particular, and to run up a $370 billion deficit, trade deficit in general. That was over 3.6, 3.7% of GDP. In 2025, despite this spectacular growth in GDP, we're running a $300 billion, roughly, trade deficit with China and a $1.1 trillion overall trade deficit with all the rest of the world, including China. That's well over that's up into the 4%. What am I getting at? At the time that they were worried about this, and a quarter century ago, we had prominent economists who said that if you got over 3% of your trade deficit, you were too deeply leveraged by foreign influences. They could buy property, too much bonds they held of American debt, they would get influence, etc. Warren Buffett in 2003 warned us in his annual letter that was published in Fortune magazine. As late as 2018, Jason Furman, the Obama economist, warned in the Wall Street Journal, of all places, you don't want to go over 3% of GDP with your annual trade deficits. So why we were doing this for the last quarter century and why we now have 1 trillion and we're up to 4% of GDP in our trade deficit. Look at the budget. Just to go back to that year, 25 years ago, we were running I can't believe it, a $236 billion surplus. This was the grand Gingrich Speaker of the House, Bill Clinton budget that was still in effect. And we were adding to our national wealth by 2.4% plus of GDP. Now?
What do you know? And the people that he says.
$1 trillion and we're up to 4% of GDP in our trade deficit. Look at the budget. Just to go back to that year, 25 years ago, we were running, I can't believe it, a $236 billion surplus. This was the grand Gingrich Speaker of the House, Bill Clinton.
Gingrich and Bill Clinton. To think, a $236 billion surplus. Okay, so Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. Clinton was the president at the time. Under a Democrat, what do you know? See, Democrats 25 years ago, You haven't always been crazy. You have not always been crazy. It's crazy. Under Bill Clinton. Like, what do you say about that? Now, everybody always is so crazy sometimes when it comes to Bill Clinton. But you can't say that much knowing under him we were running a $236 billion surplus. And now, since Joe Biden's left office and we've had other people in office, the Democratic Party mainly, who has been a little bit frivolous, let's say, with spending. Now we're at $1.8 trillion deficit. From surplus to deficit, those numbers are nasty too.
Budget that was still in effect, and we were adding to our national wealth by 2.4% plus of GDP. Now we're running a $1.8 to $2 trillion annual deficit, and that is a minus 6.4% of GDP. That has an influence on the trade deficit. And in addition to the debt was 5.6 trillion a quarter century ago. That was high, but it was still only about 33% of GDP. Today, a quarter century ago, later, the national debt is $37 trillion. That's 125% of GDP. What is my larger point? Trade deficits don't matter as much if your national debt is 30 or 35% of GDP, or you're running budget deficits that are manageable. But they do matter when you've got 125% of GDP with your total debt, your your $37 trillion debt, which is 125% GDP, and you're running $2 trillion trade deficits. What has saved us in the past? We were the world's reserve currency. So and we had 40% of the world's market. People wanted to get in here, so they were willing to carry paper for us. But when you've got $37 trillion, that's very different than 5 trillion just a quarter century ago.
Oh, yeah, that's very different.
We had an oil revolution with fracking and horizontal drilling. We went from paying an exorbitant amount of money to the Middle East and elsewhere to being really a net exporter. If you look at all the ways that we produce oil versus the oil we buy. And of course, we had $9 trillion in market capitalization that flowed into Silicon Valley to Apple, Google, and these other startups that became mega and global corporations. My final point, trade deficits matter now. We are being crushed by budget deficits, national deficits, and trade deficits. And the people who warned us about this a quarter century ago, when we did not have this problem with the national debt or the annual budget debt, were none other than Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, Senator Chuck Schumer, investment guru Warren Buffett, Jason Furman, Obama economic advisor, and the Wall Street Journal. So trade deficits matter. We got to get them down because we have no room to maneuver given our budget and our national debt. This is Victor Davis Hanson.
Yikes. Shout out to you, Victor. Those numbers are really crazy. So a quarter century ago, our trade deficit was 5.6 million. Now you fast forward 25 years and we're at 37 million. That is crazy. Even some of the most profound financial minds have said you don't want to go over 3% GDP. You don't want to go over 3% GDP. You're in trouble if you do that. In the United States, we're running at 4%. Like, these numbers are scary, ridiculous. They're scary. And this is why President Trump has to do some of the things that he's doing. He has to do some of the things that he's doing. Even if we can't understand it, even if we don't like it, if he's saying from the very beginning he has to reset the baseline because America was always in a bad situation, we have to let him do what he's doing. There's no way that we can keep carrying the debt we were carrying. There's no way that we can keep allowing the waste and fraud. And there's definitely no way that we can just keep allowing government wasteful spending. It's like that. Those numbers are scary high. I mean, if we still want a country, right? If we want the country to survive, we got to get this stuff under control. All right, guys. So switching gears, shout out to Todd over at The Simple Investor. Go check out his channel when you guys get a chance. The liberals cannot be trusted. Watch this before you vote. Shout out to Canada, guys. I always say here on my channel, Canada is my second most watched country on my channel to the United States. So I do cover a lot of Canadian news. They had their election on April 28th, so it is coming up here right around the corner. I believe they are currently voting. So let's take a look at what Todd at The Simple Investor has to say about the Liberals and them not being able to be trusted.
You know, Canada's heading into an election within the next week. And I think for Canadians, we have to ask some important questions before you mark your ballot. First and foremost, what's the last 10 years been like in Canada as a Canadian, as a tax-paying Canadian? Do you feel that you're better off than 10 years ago? Do you actually feel that the government has been taking care of us as Canadians? You know, these are really important questions that we need to ask ourselves. Who truly has been taking care of Canadians? Well, how about the next question that we should ask ourselves is the fact is, do you think Mark Carney's Liberals are going to be any different than Justin Trudeau's Liberals? I mean, after all, Mark Carney admittedly was the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. In fact, during the trucker convoy, he's the one who actually suggested seizing the bank accounts. So is that the kind of reaction that we expect from a government that's going to turn around?
So when Canada was, okay, I remember Jordan Peterson talking about this, the government seizing bank accounts in Canada. Okay, so Mark Carney, I know Trudeau was in office at the time, and Justin Peterson did mention him, but Todd is saying that Mark Carney was the person who actually advised that.
Suggested seizing the bank account. Economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. In fact, admittedly was the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. In fact, during the trucker convoy, he's the one who actually suggested seizing the bank accounts. So is that the kind of reaction that we expect from a government that's going to turn around and punish Canadians? You know, this is the thing that I think we have to really consider in the future is, do we have a housing plan in place? I mean, it's great. Look, here's the fact, is that Carney will sit there and tell you that he's going to build, 500,000 homes a year. How? I mean, his description of a home basically sounds like a shed. He's sitting there saying, it's going to be more efficient, easier to build, we're going to prefab everything. I mean, is that really what Canadians deserve? I mean, let's think about this for a second. Here's a guy that has absolutely no idea on how to run a country. I mean, he wants to sit there and take claim that, Brookfield is this huge, massive conglomerate company in the world and, is able to tax shelter them all over the place, but he's not looking for Canadians. What about the fact is that, the immigration policy of the Liberals blew open Canada and it increased our debt because all we're doing for a lot of new migrants coming in is paying the freight. I mean, is this really what we see for the future for our children? See, my point is that we need a change. I don't think the last 10 years has been very good for Canada. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure that it's been horrible. Okay, our debt has gone through the roof. Speaking of debt, economist Carney is sitting there saying, he's going to, cut government spending, but then basically said he's going to continue to, double down on the deficit. I mean, his financial proposal in the last week was an absolute joke to the point where he had to take it down. I mean, do we really want a leader that's going to sit there and say, you're not going to own the house. I want to get everybody to net zero. I mean, let's think about this realistically. Can we get rid of oil? No, the world needs oil, okay? Can we make things a little bit better? Sure we can. But to force the public, force the taxpayers into a situation where it's going to hurt us. And he made it very clear in a book that he wrote that, we must suffer to get ahead. Do we really? I think as Canadians, we suffered enough. So will the Carney Liberals be any different than the Trudeau Liberals?
Probably
well, they're
not.
the same players,
Yeah,
same people.
No.
They shift their cabinet around a little and give somebody else a different name. But we know what our finance minister looked like. That was a complete joke. We know what our prime minister looked like. A couple of years ago, Justin Trudeau promised Okay, that he's going to build 3.8 million homes by 2031. Carney's promising the same number. Trudeau did nothing. Same people working.
Yep.
So how are we going to have that problem solved with Carney's fake promise?
You're not.
I think that's really what we need to drill down, is the fact our existing government, the one in power right now, which, by the way, hasn't been doing anything but spending money.
I think Todd makes a great point there. You know what it's giving? It's giving when Kamala Harris was on The View. And I don't remember if it was Sunny hosting or if it was Whoopi Goldberg, but they asked her, would you do anything different? Would you do anything different? Based on what you've seen Joe Biden do during his term, would you do anything different? And she said, I can't think of anything, or no. And I knew it. The day that she said that, I was like, she wasn't going to win anyway, but I was like, she's definitely not going to win now. She's definitely not going to win. The level of tone deafness in the Democratic Party is repulsive. And when she answered the question like that, I was like, it's OVA, she's not going to win.
All over the world, and not even considering the debt that they're putting Canadians in. Is it time for a change? It is. But the only way we can change, and I've talked about this for the last several years, is the fact that it's going to come at the polls. We have to make the change. If they're going to leave it open for a true democratic approach to an election, then we are the ones who are now in power. Finally, we can take back and make a change so Canada can turn around and start rebuilding. I don't want to sit there and use the phrase, let's make Canada great again. How about we just make Canada great, okay? As a Canadian, I worry about the next generation. One of the most important things we need to worry about is what's going to be left for our kids and our grandkids. I mean, realistically, for some of us, we've had a pretty decent life. We've had to work hard and we paid taxes. Right now, the existing government doesn't care if you're a tax-paying Canadian. They'd rather turn around and bring in people so they can get a vote and they can turn around and give away our money. When we take a look at what's happening in the world, we can't blame everything on the United States as the existing Liberal government wants to do. Okay, the fact is Canada is struggling because Canada is struggling. It's not tariffs, because the majority of that really hasn't hit home. The fact is that our government doesn't want to explore all of our trades, everything that we could do. We've never made ourselves independent, and the government right now is realizing they screwed up. Do we reward bad behavior with more bad behavior?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it's time for a change. And this week is the time for Canadians to stand up and make a change. Love to hear.
Here's where you guys will reward bad behavior with more bad behavior. That's why Todd said no. But I said yeah, because if you guys put Mark Carney back in there, and if you put him in there, that's what's gonna happen. He came from Justin Trudeau's. He came from his administration. So, and I don't know if that's the politically correct word for you guys, but over here in America, that's what we would say administration. Like Trump's administration, so his cabinet. But Mark Carney was a part of that with Justin Trudeau. And then when I found out he was his economic advisor, I'm like, oh no, this is not good. Because the things that Canadians themselves have been saying about Canada the last couple of years. So because I have friends who I care about dearly out there, like I pay attention to Canada, I care about it. And I've said it's my second most watched country on the channel. So I've been following this well since before they even had an election date, because that was up in the air for some time. You don't want to reward bad behavior with more bad behavior. And that's what I feel like, unfortunately, Canada will be doing if they make Mark Carney their official prime minister.
Your comments on this, and as I always wrap it up, one of the most important things is today's vote is going to matter to tomorrow's kids. You know that, right? And if you think what we've had in the last 10 years is the right thing, we're not doing our kids justice for their future. Anyways, let me know what you think. Thanks for tuning in.
Shout out to you, Todd. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this election coming up in Canada. I'm hoping that there's something on that they're live streaming it somewhere on YouTube, so I can live stream it on here for you guys. But yeah, I'm just hoping that the right person wins. So I just say good luck to them, and Godspeed. Like that's how it was here for us pre-election because there really needed to be some type of change, and it might not be the change that everybody wanted. You're not gonna make everybody happy, that's obvious, but nonetheless, the majority of America did vote, and the vote went out and it came back as President Trump. So I'm hoping that my Canadian friends and family do the same thing, just because we want to see Canada have its sovereignty. We don't want to see Canada become a 51st state. I said that myself. If I was, imagine being your own sovereign state and somebody's like, hey, you just want to be a blip, like a part of ours, like on a map, and I think it's extremely crazy. But again, President Trump, he does a lot of things, to get the crowd going, let's just say. And I never thought that it would be this, but Victor Davis Hanson did a good job at explaining. President Trump was like, you didn't protect your borders like you said you would. You didn't do this like you said you would, but not actually becoming the 51st state. He does stuff like that all the time. And it's like, I said, there are even people in America, because they don't like him, they don't pay attention to him, so they don't understand what he's doing. And some people will say, if you want to make excuses for him, well, that's fine. Well, I'm not making excuses for him. I actually watch him, so I know when he's saying things like that, and if he's just joking, like when he was naming the Panama Canal, and he was saying, people are like, oh, he's looking at Greenland and he wants to take it for himself, and it's like, no, that was actually never the plan. The plan is to put a U.S. military presence in the Arctic because Russia's across from there. But if people, again, if they're not paying attention to their president and the moves he's making, they're completely blind to it, and it's really just much more of an emotional response than it is anything else. All right, guys, so jumping into the last clip of the live stream, we have Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff. Mature Christians, thank God for this. So every night we end the live stream with a clip from Cliff. If it's not from Cliff, it's usually from a YouTube content creator that's a Christian or focuses on Christian content to some extent. So let's take a listen.
Every Christian needs to hear this.
If you feel conviction, that is a sign from God that your heart is in a good place. That means your heart is still sensitive to the Holy Spirit. That means your heart can still be corrected. That means your heart can still be coached. Whenever you feel conviction, that is a sign of love. That is God telling you you're wrong. That is God telling you apologize. That is God telling you forgive. That is God telling you don't go down that road. That is God telling you go back and fix it. This is God being, watch this, a father to you. And then as you grow in maturity, you learn to be, watch this, thankful every time the Lord punches you in your soul. And this is what the Pharisees can't do. Watch, their hearts are so hardened they can't feel any conviction. The most dangerous place you can be in is not when the Lord is punching you in your soul. The most dangerous place you can be in is when you feel nothing for your sins. If you can sin and sleep, you are in a dangerous place. If you can do evil to people and sleep, you are in a dangerous place.
Every Christian.
Yeah, that's really good. Some people, when they hear the word conviction, they look at it like a dirty word. And it's like some people automatically think about the law. And I sometimes say, depending on who I'm sitting with, that's a good place to start. Is it like, are you saying like God like convicts, like the way someone gets convicted and gets sentenced to a trial? And it's like, you can feel that. And the Holy Spirit, when he's doing a work in you, I think conviction is a lot easier to feel, meaning I think that the person dealing with it is a lot more sensitive to it. It's not necessarily, now the Lord does discipline, does chastise. Scripture says that, and he does that to those he loves, just like any good parent would. But the conviction that Pastor Philip Anthony is talking about, he's saying if you're able to feel it, he's saying if you're able to feel it, because people literally can do some of the most wicked, nastiest, horrible, grotesque things and feel absolutely nothing. And some of us don't want to believe this. I hear so many people say, I think for the most part, at their core, most people are good. And I'm just like, why do people say that? And I think that they say it because they genuinely want to believe it. They want to believe it. But unfortunately, I happen to know that, and I think many other Christians who belong to Jesus are aware at the fact that at the core, we actually are not good. Left to our own devices, we would most of the time make bad decisions and do what we wanted to do and do it our way and insert our opinions. We most certainly would, because we do it all the time, every single day. And the only time that those who belong to Jesus start to feel conviction is when the Lord is doing a work in their life, and the Holy Spirit doesn't want us to move that way. He doesn't want us to talk that way. He doesn't want us to treat people that way. He doesn't want us to respond a certain way. And Pastor Philip Anthony is saying, if you're even able to feel that, that's a good thing. That means that your heart is in a good place and the Lord is still able to work on you. He says you're in the most dangerous place, not when the Lord is punching you in your soul, right? So not when you're necessarily feeling conviction. He's like, that's actually a good place. You're in a dangerous place if you can sin and you don't feel anything about it. If you can, he said, if you can treat people badly or you can do something wicked to somebody and you can sleep, you're in a dangerous place. If you can talk to people however you want to and it doesn't affect you and you're just like, oh, well, it came out how it came out. That's just how I am. You're in a dangerous place. You should feel some sort of conviction from those things. I actually cannot say whatever I want to say. I can in the sense where I can just open my mouth and I can just start speaking. But if I say whatever I want to say to whomever I want to say it, then I better watch out, because I definitely and most certainly will feel conviction from the Lord. It doesn't even matter if the person is a believer or not. The Lord will convict me just on my treatment towards people, because we don't know whose heart he's working on at any given moment. So I come out and I treat somebody a certain way and now they know I'm a Christian, and now all of a sudden they're like, I don't even want to deal with this God thing. I was considering it, but this Christian just did A, B, and C. So if you're in a place where you can feel conviction, it is a good thing. It is a great thing, and you learn to appreciate it. There were times in my life where I would just I couldn't articulate what I was feeling at the time, but I would say things to my friends or my wife and say, following God, like, why does it feel like it hurts? Or why does it feel like, I'm going through some type of surgery, or like something's shout out to Preston Morrison, like something's being like cut on. And it's because all of those things are indeed happening. They are happening, and it's a great place to be. And as I grew in my relationship with the Lord, I appreciated that feeling. It's ugly, when I feel that chastisement from the Lord or that conviction, and the Lord's like, hey, you came off a little abrasive, when you were talking to that person. And, there were times where I wanted to be like, no, I didn't, Lord. But as I grew in maturity, I just understood that the Lord cares about the person I was interacting with. And if he knows that my behavior is going to affect their heart towards him, or the openness towards him in any way, then of course I'm going to experience some type of conviction, as we should. And as we mature, we will be grateful for it. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream and go hang out with my wife the rest of the night. You guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. We will be back on tomorrow, regularly scheduled program. Be back on tomorrow around 3, 4-ish. Because it's a Friday, so I want to jump on earlier. And we're going to definitely check out something that Bill O'Reilly said about the whole DEI. He's going to do a big thing on this. So I actually want us to take a look at that, because I believe he comes at things from a very balanced perspective. I think that his age has done that. Time and wisdom and age has done that for him. He's a lot more balanced than what he was when he was younger, and I can appreciate that. So with that being said, guys, until next time, which is tomorrow, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves, and love one another, and be peaceful. Peace.